And I feel like men, a lot of times, they get thankless jobs.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't get praised, they don't get acknowledged for the roles they play in their families' lives.
And I was like, on paper, a perfect candidate. She walks in, obviously she has a Nigerian accent. They're like, no. I was like,
Nigerian or-
no.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Give me,
Yeah.
because there's a Colombian downstairs who I can't understand.
Men are not transparent around the experience, the realities of being in the diaspora and the journey of migrating. And I'm so glad that you opened up about so many aspects of that journey.
And then I started to ask myself, am I really the sum of solely my mother's contribution?
Mama always said, be careful of those island boys.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Rumbi.
Welcome to It's Layered Podcast.
We're under the Black Hearts Network, powered by iHeart, recording in studio today in Malbisi.
No, Rimbi is really trying to get the Maldizi thing going, but even Simba and I are like, it's the Shakwanis. Spot the non-Melbourneian. But yeah, we're here in Bittersweet Studio with our lovely setup done by the Pink Lady Picnic.
Yeah, boy,
And we've been laughing even before we press record because we have an amazing guest for you today. Someone we're very, very excited about. Who do we have today, Rumbi?
Okay, we've got Simba in the building, but wait, before we welcome, we want to let the people know who you are so they know that they need to come correct. Okay, that's what we're trying to do over here. All right. So I'm going to read out your bio. No pressure, but pressure. Slick like Harvey Specter, but raps with the best of them. Lawyer turned rapper, Simba Mak traded his suit and tie. You can see he's rocking a suit. He's looking so good. If you're not watching online,
we're actually
too good.
underdressed now.
Too good. He overstood the assignment. His student had career for a career in music. So he's based in Melbourne, where he's practiced as a lawyer. Simba Mak is an artist who has always embraced duality, particularly when it pertains to career and vocation. His music articulates his life's journey from Zimbabwe to Australia and exploring everyday themes that relate to anybody with a desire to dream in spite of their background. Can I get an amen on that bio?
Simba, welcome.
Welcome. Hey,
And that bio is not even touching half the things that you have done. Like, so inspirational.
Yeah.
We love, like, I've known you, obviously, when you know someone personally, but you also see them professionally. And ever since I saw you perform, anyway, 2007.
Hey!
That was uni, yeah?
That was uni.
That's crazy.
And seeing you, it's literally,
It's crazy,
insane the power you have on stage.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Like, it's a God-given talent.
It is.
And to
It's the hand of
see
God.
you now, years later, still, it makes my heart sing with joy, literally. Because it's like, I mean, Rimbi and I are always supporting creatives, always, especially from Zimbabwe, because we know how much there's an extra layer of struggle to make
Facts.
it. So to see you still doing your thing and doing it brilliantly, kudos to you.
Thank you. Appreciate
Kudos
that.
to you.
Thank you so much.
Kudos to you.
No,
Yeah, I
for
mean, I
real.
think a lot has to be said to, I guess, where we come from.
Yeah.
It's a big thing, right? So community's always been major, right? Like no one's ever self-made. Like,
Nope.
that's a myth, right? So we're all a culmination of everyone that's sort of poured into us one way or another, right? So that's one thing. But God, you know, as a foundation for all of that, you know. And then I think the perspective that we've had because of where we've come from, right?
Yeah.
Like that adversity, right? And having that perspective of like the resilience we've had to endure together what was poured into us, not knowing where we'd be, that we'd just be put on planes one day, you know, and our parents saying, well, for the best, sending us to countries they've never been to, and saying, we hope we've done enough for you to figure it out, but don't humiliate us, don't embarrass yourself, and remember the struggle you've left and what we've sacrificed for you to be in that position. So every time we've gone through things, we've always had that as sort of like a measuring stick to say, well, had we stayed where we were compared to what we're having to endure where we are now, you know, are we better off back home or are we better off in this appearance of an
bit of
advanced struggle,
space.
you know.
Yeah.
And then having that community of peers around you at uni, for example, cheering you on or hating on you or whatever it is, but you're all in it together, right?
True.
And they look like you. On some level, you can identify with the collective struggle. Do you know what I mean? So when one suffers, you mourn together. When one celebrates, it inspires you, whether it's through envy or jealousy or genuine celebration. It causes you to look in the mirror and really assess, am I fulfilling what my parents sacrificed for
So
me
much
to
for
achieve
me
when I
to.
was
Yeah.
So we all helped each other. So
It's beautiful to
even
see.
you guys doing what you're doing now, this is inspirational. Because when I met you, same deal. Because we laugh about it because at uni, our parents were like, you know, make sure you focus on your studies. You said
course.
my guitar.
My guitar,
You
my
know,
band.
bands and music, right? Because no one really makes money off that back
Yeah.
home, right? And our parents didn't have a lot of the advantages we have of like, you know, accessing, you know, private school or a really decent education that allows you to qualify to, you know, come to university in a foreign country based off our grades back in Zimbabwe, right? So for them, their way of us advancing is by them giving us what they didn't have because they think that's leveling up, right?
Yeah.
But then another thing that they don't always appreciate or the blind spot for them is we're a different generation, but then we've also been thrust into a different world unlike theirs.
Yes.
So the amount of adjustment required and attention to nuance to just even survive in this new space, for which we're the first generation, right, is something they'll never understand.
No, never.
And for us to be in a position where we can now sit here and not have sob stories, but victories, but we can also share the journey of the struggles till we got to this point, right? It just changes the whole, it's a totally different ballgame.
It really does.
Because I can give you an example, like when, when I headlined New Year's Eve here in Melbourne, right, in front of like tens of thousands of people.
Just dropping that casually, I'm just saying.
But here's what's crazy, right? So we just finished settling, like, I was in a class action team for a really big firm. And we just settled like the largest settlement in Australian legal history at the time, right? And I was like 30 at the time. And I was just sitting in my office thinking, man, like I've just like peaked so early. And by then I'd achieved everything I needed to do, help mom, got my brothers through high school and uni and all that stuff. And I'd sacrificed literally like my whole life so I could do that whilst I was here, which was the whole point of me coming. So I was like, I want to do something for myself. And I really wanted to pursue music. But then the challenge I had was, you know, I was living this dual career situation, right? Where I had to provide for my family, right? So the law thing was paying the bills. But then I was a gospel rapper at the time in church, right? So you're performing for souls, you know, to, you know, preach the gospel and all that kind of stuff. So that's sharpening your skills, but it's not paying the bills. So I really wanted to really have an opportunity to pursue my music because I felt like that was my calling, you know, my vocation. And law was my career, music and entertainment was my vocation. And there's a difference between the two, right? Your career, like people go to university, they can learn how to do that. You know, they acquire skill, you know, but your vocation, it's God-given. You know, the most anyone can do is if you have it, you have it. You can just polish it and make it better. But if you don't have it, there's nothing you can do about it, right? So I knew that with a career, because so many people can qualify to be a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
I can only negotiate my true value up to a certain degree based on what the general populace of
Everyone
law
else is doing.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
So unless I owned a law firm, I have to fit within a bracket within salaries, right? However, with my vocation, because people can't be taught to do exactly what you described in the beginning, right? Read a crowd, whether it's 20 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people, and determine how you're going to adjust the flow of energy so they're receptive to what you do. That's something that's just like God-given. And because you've got that particular skill set, right, that then allows you to actually demand a value because people now want to pay for the Simba Mak experience. They want to pay, you know, for the Rumba experience, they want to pay for the Amanda experience, right? And they can't get it anywhere else, right? Which is why Chris Brown can charge what he charges, why Beyonce can charge what she charges, right? And lawyers have to pay whatever they want to. And they can always negotiate with the lawyer because there's always a cap on their value. But there isn't a cap on Beyonce's value. There isn't a cap on Chris Brown's value. So I always understood that. So I always wanted to explore that. The entrepreneur in me always wanted to see what that looked like. And I was like, well, I'm kind of at a good place in my legal career. It's a nice time to do something, and even if I were to fail, I'm going to fail forward, but I've set enough of a foundation to come back into law. Right?
Yeah.
So I explained it to my mom. I had to have a blessing, right? Because
Yep.
single moms, you know,
Yeah.
you know, Zim moms too. So did that, and then what happened was, so fast forward within about a year and a half, what happened was the fact that I was a lawyer allowed me to jump a lot of steps. So I got put on like main stages because I was coming from a corporate background.
So they knew you knew how to handle yourself?
Well, I definitely was carrying myself a certain way. I had a certain energy and a certain confidence about me. But at the same time, like, it takes somebody that's either delusional or knows what they're doing to leave a corporate situation where they're thriving.
So like,
to
you
embark
left
into-
uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, but to embark into something that could possibly result in you not earning anything and making an idiot out of yourself.
Yeah.
So if people know you've come from a successful situation, they're more likely than not to give you a shot with your next venture.
Yeah, got you.
Because you've done what most people perceive as the hardest
Yes,
thing. Right?
yes.
So they're like, okay, shouldn't take him too much to be able to rock a stage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just had to sell the image, right? To at least give me an opportunity to be on stage. So anyway, fast forward, New Year's Eve happens. I'm on stage, right? And I'm headlining the whole thing, right? Do the fireworks for the whole city, whatever, right? And then as I'm performing, right? Because a lot of my music's autobiographical, it's about my mom, my struggle and all that stuff, and my journey, you know, because I love to inspire people, right? That's what it's about. I'm thinking to myself, like, I need to do 3 or 4 more of these, and I need to fly mom over. Because she accepted the fact that I needed to do it because I'd done right by her. But at the same time, she's just like, but what do I tell my friends at church?
Yeah. What does your man been?
Yeah, my son is now a rapper. Like, she was a lawyer. You know, like, she
Imagine that
couldn't-
story.
So she was like, I'm still gonna say you're a lawyer and keep quiet about this.
So what, unbeknownst to me, right? So at the end of like the concert, whatever. So City of Melbourne was involved in it because it was a Federation Square and stuff, right? So my team come up to me and they're like, yo, someone from City of Melbourne wants to speak to you. So I'm just like, oh shit,
Yeah.
put it up your soul, right? And because there you can't really, touch on religion, or you gotta be careful about what you do because it's such a public space, right? So I was thinking to myself, nah, we're so thorough about it. Like, we spent 6 months curating the show for a whole hour. Like, nah, we knew what we do. How could I have gotten anything? Who did I offend? So anyway, I go to the back, dancers, everyone's at the back there, the band, whatever, just like looking all somber and stuff. I'm trying to boost people's morale. Like, guys, do you understand what we just pulled off?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a blueprint on how to be a lawyer. There's a blueprint on how to be an engineer. There's a blueprint of this stuff. Like,
There is no blueprint.
We brought this into fruition based off a dream that no one believed in. Like, who would have thought, right? And then everyone's just like, yeah. It's like, come on, clap. People are like, and then corner of my eye, I see my mom just walk in. She was in the concert the whole time. I had no idea. In fact, we had such a bad sound check. I called her and I was like, Mom, I'm about to humiliate myself in front of the whole of Melbourne, and I'm gonna probably need to go back with my tail in between my legs and beg for my job back. And I was just like, baby, I'm on my way to work. I'm busy. I'll talk to you afterwards. And I was just
And she's like,
oh
this
my
woman.
God.
Oh my God.
I was like,
She's not even there for me right
Yeah,
now.
when
she's
I need her
okay.
most.
She's like, okay, it's one of those I told you so moments. But seeing her, right, and knowing that this was probably the penultimate in terms of experiences for me, right, having pulled this off, right, that all just erased my memory. I forgot where I was. It didn't matter. Tears. And then my mom was crying, and we like crawled to each other, like it was in front of everybody, right? And we just crying.
Yeah.
And then my mom just came and embraced me and said, I couldn't believe you're my son. Like, and she was crying the whole time, saying, I was just repenting to God, saying, I did not know that you had this gift in you, And I used to spend 2 hours in the toilet when I was 9. And I got this lyric, I'm like, let me take you back to 1985 when Barbara gave birth to this fly little guy. She called him beloved, she called him Simba Mak. My daddy looked at me and said, he's probably gonna make it. I remember sitting on the toilet seat, age 9, with my pen and pad, trying to write my very first rhyme. Mama knocking at the door, thinking I'm out of my mind. To me, I'm doing homework. To her, I'm wasting time. You get me? So that just came
Bars.
to, right? It's crazy, but like, to me,
She
like,
remember that moment.
and then she's like, it all made sense.
Yeah.
So even my dad not even being in my life, like, that was all the validation I ever needed.
Yeah.
And then everything just sort of like the world it made sense to me. Made sense to her why she had this weirdo,
Son.
kid. But, glory to God, like, I had a lot of friends, people like you, family, to just keep me accountable to my vocation and to
Yeah.
my career along the way. So yeah,
You,
that's how we
you
ended up.
touch on so many things that
Such a
we
lot of
can
questions.
we can dive into. But I would love to talk on this aspect of you being Zimbabwean, right? And especially as a man,
Yeah.
do you find it hard, like that duality you're talking about, where, you know, we've already gotten a picture how you kind of had this belief, even from a young age, that you wanted to make music, but it was kind of like, you know, you're a lawyer, you know?
Yeah.
But truly going an unconventional profession, and I think to our listeners, Simba's description, I think, gives a good idea of how complex it is doing unconventional things if you come from a Zimbabwean background.
Yeah.
So, what was the hardest part for you? Or do you think the goal was so much bigger that you never saw it as hard to pursue, you know, music as well as, you know, you did law, you did what you needed to do. But do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like, or was the goal just that much more of a motivator that the hardship was like, okay, it's part of it, but the goal is so much bigger and that's what I want to do? And what advice would you give someone who understands your struggle and is like, I want to do that, but I have this dichotomy of like, I need to provide for my family, but I also feel this calling to do what I was called to do?
Yeah. Look, that's such a brilliant question, and it's such a loaded question.
Very.
It's like so many ways you can sort of tackle it. Perhaps I'll use maybe a bit of an unconventional sort of response.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll look at it from this point of view. So pretty much for majority of my life, I've always heralded and praised my single mom, right, for the sacrifices she made, right, for myself and my two younger brothers, right? But my dad passed away in April this year, right? And we didn't have much of a relationship, to say the least, right? And I never, ever gave that man credit for anything.
Yeah.
And it was only maybe about a month or so ago I ever really posted about him. And it took a lot because in spite of what I'd gone through, being able to be successful in spite of, you know, him being in absentia for a big, significant part of my life, there's still that resentment and that unforgiveness, right?
Of course.
So naturally, I try to be the optimist and focus the attention on my mom, who did the positive things in my eyes, right? But to answer your question, I'm about to be a dad, right? So on Father's Day, I realized, like, that's when I broke down for the first time. So my dad died, I didn't cry or anything, you know, because I just had so much anger anyway towards him. On Father's Day, it just hit me that, you know, I'm going to be dad. And I was like, would I ever want my child to never want to have a relationship with me regardless, right? And that made me break down. Then the regret started sitting in. Then you go on this path. It can be dark, but it's very reflective at the same time. And then I started to ask myself, am I really the sum of solely my mother's contribution? Or what did this man pour into me?
Yeah.
Right? Because I look at my siblings, I look at me, we're built different. They've been raised solely by my mom. I had at least my first 7 years of my life with my mom and my dad, right? Actually, 8 years. Now, here's the thing. When I think of my upbringing, my dad was so intentional about my upbringing. So the first thing he said is, you're going to be an international statesman. Wow. My mom looked at him like, you're crazy. And my dad said, he's going to master the Queen's English. He is not going to speak Shona for the first 7 years of his life. He's going to master English because he needs to learn that skill so he can conquer wherever he ends up in the world. My grandparents, who barely could speak a word of English, had to learn how to speak to me because I couldn't speak Shona. Right? I only started learning Shona because it was compulsory because of school.
Yeah.
You know, and even with that, I got to excel. But having a mastery in English, right, and then having to go to the schools that we went to amongst white people, my dad just gave me this sense of, like, confidence, like, in myself.
You're an equal.
You get what I'm saying? Not even an equal. Like, that I was superior. Like, I was always the smartest person. Even if I wasn't, like, he'd give me a sense of, you've got enough ego to give it a go. And even if you fail, you've got enough ego to try again.
Try again.
Right? So having that as a foundation, right, in my mental blueprint, right? Like, or my mental DNA rather, gave me this insurmountable sense of I can do anything. And then now that combined with my mom now taking me to church and stuff, and watching her overcome what she did in a patriarchal society as the matriarch in our family, where she's not designed to thrive, right? And she did. Kept us in private school. Mom was a receptionist. When we were at Hartman House in St. George's, I was able to keep me in there, right? But then the endurance, and she never gave us an excuse. My dad went to jail. He stole money from the bank he worked for, right? When I was, what was that? Like 9? So he was away. That was public knowledge. And imagine having to go through school.
Yeah.
And then I was going to St. George's, right? And I was like one of maybe a handful of guys who'd go to school in public transport, Makombi, you know? And you know that driveway is a long
driveway.
It is a long
At the end,
right? And then everyone's like looking at you like, whose kid is that? Right? So you're like the poorest kid at the richest school. And you had to go and sit there every day. And I remember we used to live in Zaraseko for a while, right? So like, we didn't have a dryer, right, to dry your clothes. So the maid would wash, our clothes with her hands, right? Then hang them on the clothesline, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't have like an electric stove, so we cook outside with like, firewood.
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
So the smoke would go onto your school clothes. And
then
remember,
you get
had to
into
sit next to-
class.
and guys are like, why you smell like that? Where you coming from or whatever, So you're dealing with that. But then even with that, like I always remember like my mom's struggle. I always remember what my dad told me I was, right? So even at St. George's, I was president at Toastmasters by lower 6. You know what I'm saying? Like all of these things, I was a prefect both at Hartman House and at... I had this relentless drive, right? To just go. And because we didn't have much money and all that kind of stuff, I had to find creative ways to spend my time. Then it was either God, church, or music, poetry, whatever. Yeah. So I was always exploring those things, plus my academics and then sports and arts and all that kind of stuff. So I always had that constantly like as a running theme throughout, right? So my mom would she'd be too busy to tell me not to do certain things. You know what I mean? As long as I was like kicking goals in school,
and the grades
whatever,
were fine,
Yeah, she's like, whatever. I don't know what he's doing or whatever, right? So even coming to Australia, like I had to be so, there had to be so much ingenuity in the way I even thought of how to leave.
Yes,
because we didn't even have money to do that. And my mom was like, well, it is what it is. But I had faith from God, and I always knew God would call me to be president of Zimbabwe one day, right? So I was like, this can't be the end. Like, I can't just go to use it. There's nothing wrong with that. But then Dad prepped me, knowing at some point in my life, I was going to have to go overseas to go master and learn certain things so I can come back home and, help my people, right? So I was like, nah. So I wrote a letter to 10 of the wealthiest businessmen I knew back home to see if someone could sponsor me.
Yeah.
Went to see them all. The 10th guy I saw, everyone knocked me back. The 10th guy I saw said, okay, I believe in your dream. You can pay for my first semester so I could get a visa to just come into Australia. Then my mom sold a card to pay for my plane ticket, gave me a few $100 to start up. That's how I ended up in Australia, right? And then I had to work 4 jobs pretty much concurrently, just so I could pay my school fees and all that, just to get by and stuff like that. So when you're faced with that kind of adversity, right, for a lot of people that don't have anything to counter it with, we grew up around black lawyers, black doctors, black garbage men, black garbage collectors or whatever, right? So whatever adversity I was going to go through here, I had something to counter it with because of what I saw in what I was immersed in back home.
Yeah.
Which so I didn't have to permanently code switch.
Yes.
Compared to a kid who's born here that doesn't have anything to challenge when they told a black kid that you're race, you're black, or you're only worth this much or whatever, and then the society or the institutions condition you to think that you need to code switch to white
to fit
or
in,
more white, not just to fit in, but just to have a chance to make it.
Yeah.
Right? And we were told you can be all of these things because we've seen it.
And that's actually something we don't talk enough about, I think, is how we have that privilege of having seen,
It's crazy.
Black people succeed
like
in their own
excellence,
country.
essentially,
where you don't have to worry about race.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's normalized for you.
Yes.
So when someone tells you can't do it here, you're like,
No.
What are
nah,
you talking about,
I've
Willis?
seen
I can, yeah.
I've seen
It
it with my
happens.
eyes.
Yeah. What do you
My
mean?
dad is this, my mom is, my uncle
Yeah.
is this,
Yeah.
my auntie is this.
Yeah.
It's not even that far removed. You know what I mean? I'm here. I'm juggling full-time school, juggling full-time uni, and I'm thriving at both. So what's a rap career?
Yeah, it's true.
What's all of these things? So you
Yeah.
learn how to be duality or being a trifecta of skills. Like you have to be like what the Bible says, all things to all men.
Yeah.
You know, and even when you're in this space, it's not good enough as a black person to just be good at one thing.
Yeah.
Nope.
Right? You don't get to get into corporate just being good at one thing, right? You gotta be good at the thing that everyone else is good at.
Yeah.
Then you gotta
Plus-
show them why you're special.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get me?
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, you're the first version of your complexion they've ever seen in that
Yeah.
space.
Definitely. They
So-
take it. They're like a
You got a Nelson Mandela, Barack
Yeah.
Obama that shit.
yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And that's not so that you can thrive, so you can keep the door open for the
Yes.
next person.
Yeah, yeah.
That looks
Yes.
like
The
you.
amount of times I go to meetings with my PA and they greet my PA,
Yeah.
I'm there.
You are the PA.
And my PA's like, and also she's an older white lady, and she now gets to the point where she kind of loves it
real.
because she knows it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And like she's like, no, that's Amanda.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah,
right.
the
As in, they
shock.
didn't even like one guy like literally like muscled his way past me to come and greet her.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
it's me. Like
Yeah.
you know, it's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just they've just never seen that.
And also with that, right? Then comes the thing of like, you have to also condition yourself to understand you can't, as offensive as certain things may be, you cannot operate from a place of emotion.
No.
Right? Because you gotta understand nuance, right? Because there's a difference, and we all learned this, right? You don't get a playbook of how to thrive in this situation, right? Our parents didn't know how to do it. We're the first ones to try it out, right? But the wise ones of us figured out that we have to make a decision whether we want to be right or whether we want to win. Pick one. Pick one. Because when you start winning, you can afford to be right.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you choose to be right, you seldom can afford to win, if you
too.
don't control the system in place, right? So we're trying to be in there and to normalize our presence in a lot of these spaces where us being there is a foreign concept or unlikely, and things like this still happen to this day, you know?
But it's exhausting.
it is
though.
It's the worst thing. I'm glad you said
It's
that.
exhausting.
It's
so
like
glad.
really
But
exhausting.
we do open avenues for other people. I remember the first time, I mean, at my workplace, I was the first black woman. And then we did another round of interviews for like, it was just like an entry level job. And this Nigerian lady applied and she says, look, I've raised my 3 girls. Now I'm an empty nester. So all I want is just a job until I retire. So this is perfect for me. And I was like, on paper, a perfect candidate. She walks in, obviously she has a Nigerian accent. They're like, no. I was like, no. Why? Why? Give me,
Yeah.
because there's a Colombian downstairs who I can't understand. And
But y'all are like-
y'all think she's cute, so
Yeah.
that's why you're
Yeah.
like, you know.
That's
And I
crazy.
had to challenge them. I thought, you know what, this is probably the reason why you do open the door, as you said, for others to come through. And she's absolutely brilliant at her job, kills it, because she has that purpose. Because she's like, you know, I'm at home, I'm all alone. My job is my social
That's
network.
right. Yeah.
And now they all love her. But it
Yeah.
took that, like, jumping into the unknown for them, because they were like, oh, we can't get past the accent. And it's like, she's speaking English. You can all hear what she's saying.
Well, you know what's interesting? That's such a valid point. So, firstly, to your point about being tired, right? There is a degree of exhaustion, right? And the thing is, like, even amongst ourselves, right? Sometimes we can be so embarrassed, even to discuss amongst ourselves what we're struggling with,
Yeah.
because we always want to appear strong, because that's what, keep up appearances, right? Because
That's what our parents did, to
that's-
be fair.
and to be fair, that's a form of code switching, because you're not being real, but you're being what's necessary for the moment.
Yeah.
But some of us don't uncode switch back to reality. And that's where the stress comes. That's where the frustration comes. That's where the unrealistic expectations come. And that's where the very realistic disappointment comes. Right? And if we have more of these discussions amongst ourselves, and also acknowledge and also make people aware of it. And because we've done well, all right, we're probably the best candidates to actually broach discussions like racism, that where we're not coming from an emotional standpoint.
True.
Because we have a right to, but we want to win this discussion, and we don't want to win the argument and lose the person. So we will never come from a place of emotion, but we'll come from a place of intellect. Right?
Said like a true lawyer.
Yeah, very true.
Very diplomatic. We see why you do what you do, like you're doing it for TV. Okay.
But you feel me, right? Like,
No, I get it,
'cause
I
at the
get
end
it.
of the day, right? Because people always they rush to racism, and yes, but that's a very simplistic way
Yes.
of putting it.
Yes.
And you know what? To somebody to whom it's happening to, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. But then there is this thing about racism, right? Where it's like colonization. Back in the day, you know, Britain could just go in and invade a country and do what they wanted,
Yeah.
right? Now they get to do it through multinational companies.
Facts.
It's an evolutionary version of colonization, right?
Definitely.
All right, and it's a long story, but there's a reason why we're all here and not at home.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, but that's a different discussion
Yeah.
altogether. We'll
Listen,
come and discuss
don't be
another
calling
time.
us out nice.
But yeah, but what I will say is that racism's version of that is classism when it evolves, right? So then it becomes this thing where racism shouts, classism whispers. Right? So racism shouts offense, classism whispers offense. And it's designed specifically to be targeted at the person it's supposed to undermine and keep down. And then because it's whispered, only that person hears it. And then when they say it out loud, because no one else hears it, no one
They're
else
like,
sees it,
"It
they're
must
like,
not happen."
nah, it didn't happen that way. It
Yeah.
couldn't have happened that way.
Yeah.
So sometimes racism is a preferred thing because it can actually, it puts things on the table that can be dealt with.
Yeah.
You know what I
Have
mean?
you watched Origin, a movie by Ava DuVernay?
No,
Currently on Netflix. I'm telling everybody to watch it.
But
But
it is
it's
on Netflix.
It's on
But
Netflix.
is it Australian Netflix though? That's another thing.
Yeah,
I would have seen it.
because of
Yeah,
it.
because
Yeah, I
you
think
guys
It's
are
on European
Nah,
European
yeah,
Netflix.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if we got it on
DuVernay.
European
Yeah.
Netflix, I'm sure it's coming to
possibly.
it will come.
Okay.
But basically, she's challenging this notion of we always quick to say everything's racism, but then her. As for you talk classism, I think it's very true. We had an episode on classism if you haven't already listened to it. But also caste system. But it's all about, putting someone else down to, put yourself. And I think we need to realize that the conversations around discrimination are very nuanced and we can't always just leave it to race.
That's true.
And with things like classism and caste systems, it also challenges you because it happens between people who look the same,
That's
of the
true.
same
Very true.
nationality,
Very true.
same race. And we don't like that because it makes us feel like, and if you think about it in that perspective, it's uncomfortable, right?
yeah.
So you speak a very good point.
But the thing is, the thing about racism, though, right? Which is, and I love your points. They're so on point. Racism, the thing about it is, it actually gives you a cheat code. If you're successful and rich, you get to enter into the room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You get a
that's
seat
true.
at the table.
Yeah.
Classism, no matter how successful you are, they exactly
Always
like
remind you.
they will remind you of who you are.
Big fact.
You're not part of this, the
the
originators,
OGs, yeah,
the original
yeah.
families. Yeah, this
you
institution
from
wasn't built
again?
for you. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, you fit through the cracks in the system, whatever. So, to me, the exhaustion in having to, more often than not, be the only person in these rooms where there's high pressure expectations to perform or whatever, and bite your tongue, right? For the sake of whoever might come after you,
Yeah.
for your survival, for your ability to thrive, takes a massive toll that nobody that doesn't look a certain way, hasn't gone through what we've gone through. Think about it. We're like, 7,000 miles, 11,000 kilometers away from the place we were born. And we've been that way for the last 2 decades with no supervision. How do you end up like this? There has to be something in the water, whether it's cultural, discipline, whatever it is back home, because there's just way too many of us that have come from that situation of abject poverty or suffering or whatever, and were just thrust into this situation, put on planes to come here, have made it.
Yeah.
If we were to flip the script with kids born here,
Oh, yeah.
the resilience, we're not the same.
Yeah.
Nah, not the same.
We're cut from a
I'm
different cloth.
unapologetic
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
And there's something to be celebrated about us even surviving here. But we've thrived.
Thank you for saying that because I think this rhetoric around millennials never matching our parents' success and all this is very loud, right? But I think the way you've kind of put it is that think about where we came from and the odds we faced that are on a completely different playing field to, a lot of our peers who don't have that.
And the opportunity is not given. Like our parents, a lot of times they won't tell you about the grants they were getting.
Yes, my parents went to university on scholarship.
Are you in
by
Lansing
the
on a
government?
scholarship, you know?
Yes.
And here's Simba saying I'm working 4 jobs to make. It's not the same.
It's not
You
the
gotta
same
hustle.
ball.
You know?
Yeah. And the thing is, because they gave you a leg up, and here's another thing. We all, majority of us came here, right? So back home, they'll think, oh, Simba is in Australia. He's okay now.
Yeah.
You must send money, whatever, right? Okay, cool. But if you think about it, the way things are supposed to work from one generation to the next, right? You're supposed to have compounding interest. You're supposed to be the beneficiary of those that came before you, right? So, for example, like in my situation, fine, I found a way to get myself here, right? But then I'm the first generation.
Yeah.
I'm what the first Italians were. I'm what the first Greeks were. That's what I am.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But then I'm not working off an inheritance
Yeah.
from my parents.
Yeah.
Big
If
facts.
anything, I'm coming here to
send,
earn
to
something
earn and
so
to
I
send
can
back.
so I can pay a black tax.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm coming here to be a parent.
Yeah, exactly.
As a child.
Exactly.
So I'm missing out. When I look back at uni, this wasn't enjoyable to me. I had to fake. I don't know if you guys even noticed that I was working 4 jobs or whatever. My enrollment got cancelled 5 times because I was behind on my school fees. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, and, I was supposed to be deported 5 times over. Luckily, the enrollments manager's like, at least he's paying his rent on time or whatever, and his grades are decent. I'll try and keep it from the board, so he
to
doesn't
see.
get.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get what I'm
yeah.
saying? But then amongst your peers, you're also trying to hustle and do all these kinds
Yeah.
of things. So when you think of all of that stuff, and then we're starting at a point where we've got to send money back. So
Yeah.
we're not even making like that forward stride we're supposed to if we had saved or kept all the money we're sending back.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Right? So I get to start my family way later because I had to raise my brothers and all that stuff, right? So that's all but at the same time, that also forced me to push myself beyond what I was willing to do for myself.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a benefit to
There's
it.
a bigger goal.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right? But we all struggle like in that respect, like having to do those kinds of things, right? So you're here and your savings aren't necessarily up to par or whatever, and you're at X age, whatever, but you've paid a black tax.
Yeah. Oh, the
Yeah.
black
So
tax.
your life may actually, realistically speaking, properly start with you enjoying the fruits of your labor, maybe at age 40.
Yeah. And then people are thinking,
Thinking
but
it's
you've
good.
been there for 30 years, 20 years. What
What,
do you have to
yeah.
show? You
Yeah.
know?
So
And then
true.
it's think about it, it's scary to post anything on socials because of how it can be interpreted back home.
Bruh.
You're wearing
Yes.
something nice, whatever,
Bruh.
you're eating, you like, and also the guilt.
Yeah, the
Simba,
guilt,
do
the
not.
guilt.
You
Hey.
get me?
Even
Like-
in Rimby coming here, and we'll be just so frank, even coming here with the podcast, you'll be like, so the podcast must be making money.
Money,
And it's like, people don't understand our
The
creative world's work,
sacrifice.
the sacrifice, the
Yo.
moving
It's
things,
crazy.
shifting
You're scared to
things
let people
to make it
know.
work,
Yeah.
to make
Because
it work, to make it work.
Listen, we can go on and on. Like, there's
Yeah.
so many things
It's
you've
layered.
touched on,
No, it's
so many
layered.
layers.
It's layered.
It's so layered. But
Shout
I will
out to it's layered.
shout out to Italy. But I will say thank you. I know we have to wrap up now, and time is running out. But I think it was very. It's been very important, I think, hearing, especially from a male perspective. I think that's another thing, especially in our community. Men are not transparent around the experience, the realities of being in the diaspora and the journey of migrating. And I'm so glad that you opened up about so many aspects of that journey, as well as trying to be a creative, whilst also being a support system to your family, especially back home and financially. Like, there's so many layers to your life, to a lot of our lives, when we are trying to make it in this new world we've been given. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, for sharing that. Clearly, we need to have another conversation because
for
there's
sure, for
clearly
sure.
so much more to
I
unpack.
just had one question to ask you, and as you were speaking about how you mastered the English language, do you think that played a huge role in you being a lyricist?
Oh, 100%.
Because you know, so your
100%.
dad did
No one's got penguin like me.
plant that
No,
seed in
that
you.
was hectic. That's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
so I didn't even finish that
Yeah.
thought. So when I was reflecting on it, right, I was like, the only reason I got the springboard, right, to even have the mindset I've got, to even have the ability to identify things via nuance or whatever, it's because I had an advantage and a head start from anyone I was up against. So even in school, it's killing the white kids in English. Even here, kill the white kids in English. Even and mastering English because of the way the language is constructed helped me learn languages like Latin and French. You know what I mean? Like
You learned Latin? Oh, I guess
French.
law, yeah.
Well, but even no, this was at St. George's. Like
At
back
St.
in high
George's
school.
they used to,
In
yeah.
Zim.
Yeah.
Zimbabwean
People
education
learned
is
Latin.
People did.
Latin
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I know
So
French.
it's real, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then you got to do your your sciences, chemistry, biophysics, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you do it all, right?
Yeah.
But then he gave me that. And I always, and for a long time, yes, I did carry shame because of what my dad did, going to prison, all that stuff. But I also carried pride because of our last name, Makoni, and what he did, what he represented, all the stories you do about your uncles and stuff, right? So credit to my dad, may he rest in peace. But he put such an incredible thing. And I feel like men, a lot of times, they get thankless jobs.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't get praised, they don't get acknowledged for the roles they play in their families' lives.
Yeah.
In 9 times out of 10, like what tends to be highlighted is what they do wrong.
True.
You know, and I'm literally an example of that, right? With my dad, and it's unfortunate that it took that long to realize that, right? But I'm glad I did anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it also is helping me deconstruct why I am the way I am, and why I'm different from my brothers who only got raised with unconditional love. My dad raised me with full-on intense discipline, right? For the first half of my life when I was in Zim, and then I had unconditional love from my mom solely, right? But my brothers only got unconditional love. We built different.
Yeah.
So the
Built
discipline,
different.
So the discipline was the fact, and sometimes you need a man, because I don't think I would listen to my mom the way I would have. My dad he put a sense of revering. I'm not saying it's healthy.
Yeah, but
there's an
there's a
extent to
role
which
to
where
play.
like you've got to get the kid to get certain things done, and he put just enough in me that when he was absent for the rest of my life, those 7 years were enough.
Yeah. I mean, Rumbi, I'm sure, has seen it now, even with Jerome. Like, I'll be like, oh, I'm so soft. I'll just
She
let
is
him.
so
And the
soft,
dad
yeah.
comes through and does what he needs to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in this season, we were really trying to celebrate Black women, but it was really important for us to have you on because
you.
there
Appreciate
is Black men too.
Yeah.
And I think you don't have spaces that we always celebrate you. So to have you on our podcast for this episode has been so special
Thank
for
you so
us.
much.
And shout out to our brothers.
Yeah,
Thank you,
sure,
brother.
sure.
Thank you, man.
And
Please.
Kuchena Machena, you're looking so good.
Shout out to my mom for that.
Hey.
So I would say why this makes sense.
Yeah.
though. Because I was, for the most part of my life, raised by a single woman, right? I will tell you as a man, I do have a nuanced appreciation and perspective when it comes to women. So because of what I saw my mom did, right, as a single woman in that patriarchal society, when I look at women, I know there's a lot of things you do way better than we could if we were single parents.
A little louder for those in the back.
But because I was there to see my mom, there's things that I expect out of women that I'm like, nah, you can do better.
Yeah.
I know what you're capable of.
Yeah.
I know how strong you can be. Not for everyone, but for a lot of you, there's that. So I also want to also send the message that there is that thing that men do see, and it is the time for women to actually shine, you know what I mean? And we are in a world now where it doesn't always have to be on the man to do the financials or whatever. You women have demonstrated, our mothers have demonstrated, right, that you guys are just as intellectually competent, if not more so than us men. But then the ability, when we are talking about duality, since we are on that topic, you guys are literally the blueprints of that. You guys are the originator. You showed us how to do it. I learned how to duality from my mom. Not my dad.
Yeah,
I actually learned it from a woman.
the multitasking.
You know what I mean?
that's very
but,
true.
but then when we do master your skills, say thank you to us. Encourage us as we go. We'll make mistakes.
We'll give you some flowers.
Give us some
Sunflowers.
flowers.
Sunflowers.
Some high tea, maybe a cookie. If I say cookie.
So 2025, you started with a bang with obviously having you on the podcast. What do you have in store for yourself for 2025? Obviously, as you're going to be a father.
Gonna be a father.
Which is
Can you-
amazing.
That's crazy. That's
Exciting.
But also
I'm
in
excited
your
about that.
creative space, what can we look forward to?
So I'm gonna be dropping music. So I'm like a serial perfectionist. So I've done all of these things to my music and stuff, like performing and stuff, but I've never released anything. I've always just wanted to have the perfect representation of me. So if I listen to it 10 years from now, I'm not cringing, And I think I've got to that place now.
Okay.
So definitely be releasing some new music. So that's gonna be crazy. Yeah, and just focusing on being a dad and being present, man, and like trying to impart a lot of what I learned from my parents and from my experience as well, and also just navigating, I guess, that challenge now of like raising, arguably a black kid, it should be half, Zimbabwean, half Italian, right? Like just raising her in this foreign sort of space, where also there's a very good chance she won't. Identity is a big thing, right? She may not look like her dad or look like her mom exactly.
Girl dad.
You're not a girl dad. Can you believe that?
We're here for it.
Heart melting.
I'm an
right?
intellectual. Do my girl dad training so you can speak to your
I need
kids.
to get a license for a shotgun and all that.
Already.
Get into modeling so she can pay bills quickly.
Oh, wow.
Cover that mortgage
Yeah,
so we can
cover.
rest. So I can be a full-time parent. Things like that. So I
forward
think
to that.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to doing a lot of things and doing a lot of course correction, I think, and actually taking a break from just the hustle and bustle and just slowing down and just reflecting on life and being present, which is a luxury we just haven't had, right?
Yeah.
When we were going to uni, like other kids
definitely.
had their families and had meals cooked for them, groceries, finance, all that, whatever.
Remember through COVID, people would be like, I can't see my mom. She's going to drop lasagna. I'm like, bruh, the borders are closed. What are you talking about? I can't go anywhere. You're talking
Somebody's
about lasagna.
like, please.
There's levels to it.
different,
There's
yeah.
levels to it.
Yeah,
And I think, look, and it's actually good we can laugh about a lot of this stuff because there's a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
right?
Facts.
And the thing is, like, our parents 9 times out of 10 and family back home are just concerned primarily with just the result, the goal.
Yes.
Did you do what we sent you
Yeah.
to do?
Yeah.
We're not too concerned about how you got there unless you're going to embarrass us and do something messy, right? So we raised each other. That's the point I'm trying to make. The peers that were with us, because you are the ones that are part of the journey.
Yeah.
Right? I had
Yeah.
friends that, like, I remember when I was like, it was too hard to raise school fees money, right? I was like, I'm going to focus on being an artist because that's what comes naturally. I was like, I'll be a rapper. I don't think I'm ever going to be a lawyer. I'm probably going to get deported before. So maybe if I pursue my music, maybe I can potentially get a record deal, because I don't think I'm going to graduate. I don't think I'm going to finish law and psych. I don't think it's a real thing for me. But it was being around friends. I have a friend called Rodney who was at uni with us in visual, right? So he's like a cardiologist, like crazy surgeon in Adelaide now. And I remember he was studying biomed. You did biomed too, right? Yeah. And that's a 3-year degree.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, he would go and study for that GAMSAT exam by himself. And, like, he'd tell us, like, he wants to be a doctor. And we just out there murder, like, whatever, bro. Yeah. Pipe dream. He went. So people go and get private lessons and stuff to do that. He taught himself. He's self-taught. Went sat the GAMSAT exam himself. Got into University of Queensland Medical School. Hustled his way through. The moment he left Perth, most people get to have that experience at the end when everyone graduates, and then they're like, okay, everyone gets a job, everyone moves on. I was fortunate enough. He finished his degree before me and left. I felt that hollowness of, like, I don't want to be that guy that was left behind. And then all my other guys are made it. I don't want to be the guy that's invited to lunches or whatever. And guys are like, Simba, now we got you, Simba. I never, you know what I mean? We got the tab. Well. I don't want to. I never wanted to be, and that just woke me up. And I was like, dude, try. I've got my mentor, my Simba Mashumba. We're coming from church once. I was still in that mindset of, like, life is too hard, I'm not going to make it. I was in that give up mode, right? And he had just graduated. He'd done BCom, accounting and all that. And he just got an internship at an accounting firm. We're coming from church one day in Perth, how hot it is, right? And then he'd forgotten some paperwork at work. So he had to drive to the city. So he couldn't leave me in the car because it was too hot. So he's like, dude, just come with me, right? Right? So I was like, okay, whatever. So I'm there, my head backwards. I was, like baggy jeans. How it is, skunk wear, remember? Yeah, all day. So, oversized tees, whatever. I'm thinking I'm a thug out in these streets, right? So we walk into this corporate space, right? So I'm used to seeing him work at the kiosk at Caltex, right? Never seen him in a corporate setting.
Casual job,
So now I'm thinking, like, he told me he had the job. I was like, whatever. So we walk into the building, get into the lift, go up the lift, whatever. He's got a pass, And he's going through this stuff. And I'm just like, a black man works in this space. It took me back to Zim and reminded me of where I came from. Then without him having to utter a word, right? He ushered me into my future. That's why a mentor is important because they can express things to you that you're willing to receive.
Yes.
But that also caused a course correction for me mentally to be like, you have no excuse not to
You can do this.
to finish your
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm in the position I'm in. So we all raise each other.
Bars.
Oh, this has
Okay.
been such a lovely
Thank you
episode.
so much.
Yeah.
Where can people keep up with you? So when you finally release,
Yeah.
we
Well,
can be in the know.
appreciate that. We'll probably launch our website at the time, but for now, Instagram's probably the place. So it's Simba Mak. That's the handle. So at ITSSIMBAMAK. Yep.
Yeah.
Hit me up there, man. Let's stay connected. Be empowered. People, thrive. It's not always easy, but it's possible. It's possible. Anything you practice and you're willing to learn, you can achieve, conquer, and thrive. So I encourage you to do that.
Oh, thank you so much,
Bars.
Simba. That was beautiful.
Thank you so much. I feel like I've gone through like a life coaching,
It's been such
It's
a beautiful
okay. You can
episode.
subscribe.
Hey.
I'm taking money. Give me the money. So I
Give me
can
the
shop
money.
some money.
To shop some money.
Nah,
On
thanks,
that
guys.
note, we
Thank you.
better go. And thank you so much for tuning in. This has
Yeah.
been a beautiful episode. And thank you, Simba, for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Blessings.
opportunity, for the platform, and thank you for even just allowing us to come in and share our journeys and our stories,
course.
unfiltered, and asking the right questions and actually caring enough to go to those places, because sometimes, the people you're interviewing will take you certain places.
Yeah.
But that's why Oprah is a genius, because it takes a very special person
Yeah,
to
to
be able to
go
sit
there.
across the table and bring out the
Yeah.
gold out of them.
Yeah.
Like, how much stuff do you guys need to know? How intelligent are you to pull that off? It's crazy.
Oh,
It's a
thank
different level
you.
of intelligence.
Hey, Oprah. Anza, Oprah.
Ah, you heard
Hit
that
us up.
right here, right now. Oprah. Zim. Oh, my way. Anyway, with that, thank you so much, everybody. Catch you guys on the next
Bye,
one.
guys.
Bye.